So free agency has officially started, and I thought it would be a good time to look back and see what the biggest contract is that every single team has signed during free agency. And I gotta say, some of these are crazy. Like, some of the players are terrible, some of the contracts are cheap, and some of them are head-scratchingly bad. So without further ado, let's take a look at the biggest free agent contract given by every team in Major League Baseball. Getting us started today, the Seattle Mariners' biggest free agent contract in their team's history went to Robinson Cano, 10 years, $240 million back in the 2014 offseason. Cano, of course, before the steroids, was on pace to be one of the best second basemen we've ever seen, was on a Hall of Fame career path. But after the suspension of steroids, that kind of changed everything, and his numbers did drop off a little bit in Seattle, but he still was very good. While he didn't finish his contract in the city of Seattle, throughout his time there in the 5 seasons, Robinson Cano hit .296 with a .353 on base, .472 slugging for an .826 OPS, and an OPS plus at 129. Over 100 home runs, 400 RBIs. Did this contract work out? Maybe? I'm not going to say yes or no with this one, because he was relatively good. The Mariners just didn't have that crazy of success, but this was a huge contract for them to give out. The biggest contract the Blue Jays have given out in their history is George Springer, getting 6 years, $150 million back in 2021. Springer, of course, World Series champion with the Astros, one of the better outfielders of the late 2010s, and an extremely good leadoff hitter. Came to Toronto, and so far in 3 seasons has looked solid. The numbers have gone down year after year for George Springer as he's getting older, but he's still playing relatively good baseball. In the 3 season with Toronto, George Springer has 68 homers, 66 doubles, and 198 RBIs, hitting .262 with a .338 on base, .460 slugging, and a .798 OPS. Of course, with Springer, you always need him to be healthy. Has this contract worked out as of right now? I'm gonna say no, especially because he's moving to corner outfield now, but there's still 3 years left on this one. We'll have to check back and see. Keeping it in the AL East, we've got the Baltimore Orioles, and the biggest contract they've given out, you guys know it, it's Chris Davis. Chris Davis got absolutely paid in the 2016 offseason when he hit free agency. Orioles saw him play well, and they paid him for it. Chris Davis signed a 7-year, $161 million contract, and we know how this one played out. It did not work. He did have a couple decent seasons left, but pretty much Chris Davis's career was never the same. Started off super hot with the Orioles, ended about as bad as it possibly could have with 6 hits in 52 at-bats in 2020, and Chris Davis is no longer playing baseball. This contract was a failure. Another American League East team up next, the Tampa Bay Rays, not known for giving out big contracts. The biggest one they have given out, though, to a free agent is going to be Zach Eflin. And honestly, Zach Eflin's been pretty good in the 1 season that we have seen thus far on his 3-year, $40 million contract. Eflin made 31 starts this year to a 16-8 record, 3.5 ERA in 177 2/3 innings pitched, with a whip at 1.024 and a FIP at 3.01. The strikeout rate went up, the walk rate went down. Everything that you'd expect to see from a Rays pitcher happened. He just straight up got better, and at 3 years, $40 million, even that 1 year alone, completely worth it. Eflin is a really solid pitcher. Ooh, we've got a fun one here, keeping it in the state of Florida with the Miami Marlins' biggest contract, and that would be Jose Reyes, who got the biggest contract in their history at 6 years, $106 million back in 2012. Jose Reyes was one of the better shortstops in Major League Baseball of the 2000s with the New York Mets. A little bit of pop in that bat. He was obviously stealing a ton of bases, scoring a lot of runs, and just causing havoc on the base paths. He lasted only 1 season in Miami, played 160 games, 11 homers, 37 doubles, 12 triples, and 57 RBIs with 40 stolen bases, and a .780 OPS. Honestly, not that bad of a season for Jose Reyes. Of course, the Marlins, who tried to buy their way to success, ended up tearing that team down very quickly. And while they did get a lot of pieces back for the Blue Jays in the trade that they made for Jose Reyes, this one's going to go down as a failure for them. Weirdly, though, because they just didn't give him a shot. He actually played well, just the plan didn't work. Yeah, so this next one's going to be a big failure. The Los Angeles Angels' biggest free agent contract they've ever given out, 7 years, $245 million back in 2020 to Anthony Rendon. And for all you baseball fans out there, especially Angels fans, you know how this one's gone. The most games he's ever played in a season was 58, and that was back in 2021. Otherwise, Anthony Rendon has had a hard time staying on the field, and when he has been on the field, it's been terrible. The COVID year, he was actually pretty good with a .915 OPS, but since then, Anthony Rendon has played in a total of 148 games in 3 seasons with 13 homers, 29 doubles, 80 RBIs, and a .701 OPS. He seems unmotivated, uninterested, and honestly just looks terrible. This one was bad. Angels are cursed. The biggest contract in Philadelphia Phillies history, of course, is going to be the man, Bryce Harper, who received a 13-year, $330 million contract back in 2019, and boy, oh boy, has it been worth it. The Phillies went to the World Series in 2022, lost in the NLCS in 2023, but none of that is Harper's fault. The guy has just continuously played good baseball since he got to the city of Philly. In his time in Philadelphia, you, Bryce Harper is hitting .284 with a .395 on base, .536 slugging, and a .931 OPS. He's won an MVP, and he's averaging about 30 home runs, 40 doubles, and 100 RBIs in his 162-game average. Harper's a stud. They haven't won the World Series yet with him, but regardless, this contract's super worth it. The biggest contract given out by the St. Louis Cardinals to a free agent actually goes to Matt Holliday all the way back in the 2010 season, where he got a 7-year, $120 million contract. And yeah, I mean, Matt Holliday won a World Series with the Cardinals, had a really good career with them from 2010 to 2016, where Holliday was averaging 20 homers, 32 doubles, and 80 RBIs a season with a .288 average, .377 on base, .486 slugging, and an .863 OPS for an OPS plus at 136. Matt Holliday, criminally underrated player, very, very good, like the Hall of Very Good Players. Almost finished with a career 300 batting average. This contract was a great one, totally worth it. Staying in the National League Central for the Chicago Cubs, their biggest contract, you guys know it, it's going to be Jason Hayward. 2016 offseason, Jason Hayward got paid 8 years for $184 million. And at the time, it even felt like an overpay. Felt a little crazy, and in retrospect, yeah, it was. Now, we will say this, Jason Hayward got a World Series. The Cubs won one, so if you're a Cubs fan, you might not be that upset. But in terms of his actual performance, it was pretty horrendous. During his time with the Cubs, Jason Hayward's 162-game average was 14 homers, 24 doubles, and 63 RBIs with a .245 average, .323 on base, .377 slugging, and a .700 OPS. Yeah, that's bad. Those numbers are not good, and this contract was one of the worst contracts we've seen given out in baseball history. Not great. Tough look for the Cubs, but they did win a World Series, so who cares? I swear this was on accident, but we've got another National League Central team here, the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's shocking. The biggest free agent contract they've given out in their history goes to Francisco Liriano, who signed a whopping 3-year, $39 million contract back in 2015. Yep, Pirates are one of the just teams that does not spend on free agents. And it makes sense. Liriano had been in Pittsburgh the last few seasons, hit the free agent market, they decided to pay him, and he didn't stick around very long. 2015, he did end up having a good season, a 12-7 record with a 3.38 ERA and 186 innings pitched. But after some struggles in the 2016 season, they shipped him off to Toronto in exchange for Drew Hutchinson. Weird trade for a guy who really wasn't getting paid that much, but that is the biggest contract the Pirates have given out to a free agent. Was it worth it? Probably not, but also it was such a little amount of money that, like, yeah, he was decent. I'd give that one like a 50-50 sure. A little surprised by this next team. The biggest free agent contract that the Houston Astros have given out was to El Caballo, Carlos Lee, 6 years, $100 million, back in the 2007 offseason. Huge fan of Carlos Lee, one of my favorite players when I was a kid growing up. And if you look at his numbers, it makes sense. During his time in Houston, Carlos Lee played in over 800 games, 133 homers, 187 doubles, 533 RBIs, hitting .286 with a .338 on base, .479 slugging, and an .817 OPS for an OPS plus at 117. And if you look at the first few years of that contract, especially 07 and 08, he was absolutely money. In those years, you saw El Caballo averaging over 30 homers and 30 doubles a season with clearly over 100 RBIs and a .905 OPS. So yeah, I would say the Carlos Lee contract was definitely worth it and a good one. For the San Francisco Giants, Johnny Cueto is going to be their biggest free agent contract ever at 6 years, $130 million after he won the World Series with the Kansas City Royals in 2015. And Cueto came out to a hot start with the Giants. 2016, it was 18-5 with a .279 ERA with over 219 innings pitched. Finished 6th in the Cy Young Award, was an All-Star, but that was pretty much it for Johnny Cueto's career in San Francisco. Injuries just kind of plagued him a bit, was never consistent or healthy enough to be good, and honestly, it probably made this contract not worth it because of how little he was actually on the field. But that 2016 season was special. He was dominant, and if he could have done maybe one or two more of those, yeah, totally would have been worth it. Shocking one here for the Atlanta Braves. The biggest contract they've given out in their free agent history went to B.J. Upton. Yeah, B.J. Upton. Upton got a 5-year, $75 million contract in the 2013 offseason. And I mean, you guys have heard the name B.J. Upton. You know this one didn't pan out. He had two of the worst seasons of his entire career in Atlanta. He averaged 134 games with a OPS at .593. This will also go down as one of the worst free agent contracts in MLB history. But of course, the Braves only spent $75 million, so did it really hurt them? Whatever. Don't care. Glad the Braves did something wrong for once. For the Cincinnati Reds, we've got a two-way tie between Mike Moustakas and Nick Castellanos, who both received 4-year, $64 million contracts from the Reds in the 2020 offseason. Both Castellanos and Moustakas were pretty solid with the Reds, and at 4 years, $64 million for guys who were hitting 20, 30 home runs a year, driving in around 100 RBIs. I feel like those were both pretty good, pretty fair contracts. Of course, neither of these guys finished out their contracts with these teams. They ended up being traded and moved. But honestly, I think they were pretty fair contracts, and the guys played pretty well for their teams. Halfway through the video here, we've got the Texas Rangers up next, and their biggest contract they've ever given to a free agent was Corey Seager's 10-year, $325 million contract in the 2022 offseason. And yeah, this one's worth it. In the 2 seasons that Corey Seager's played with the Rangers, he's been the best shortstop in baseball, no doubt. And of course, they just won the World Series, so yeah, it's worth it. He's averaging 135 games a season, 33 homers, 33 doubles, 90 RBIs, and an OPS at 879 with an OPS plus at 141. This past season, he was disgusting, probably would have won the MVP if it wasn't for Shohei Ohtani. Don't really care how much money he's going to make the rest of his career. He could stink. They won a World Series. He's been dominant for these 2 years. It's already worth it, no matter what. Now for my New York Mets, a weird one here because technically he was a free agent. Their biggest contract's going to go to Brandon Nimmo, who signed a 8-year, $162 million contract in the 2023 offseason. Now, of course, this is going to be one of the rare re-signs that are going to fall this way into the video, but technically he was a free agent, so it counts. And Nimmo, honestly, had a great season this year. Probably the best season of his career, maybe. 152 games, career high in home runs at 24, 30 doubles, 6 triples, and 68 RBIs, also a career high. 274 average, 363 on base, 466 slugging for an 829 OPS. Plays stellar defense out in the outfield. Brandon Nimmo, stud. It's probably too early to say if it's worth it, but right now it's looking really good. Love me some Brandon Nimmo. Criminally underrated. This isn't Mets bias. You guys are actually biased against the Mets for hating Nimmo because I like him. For the World Series runner-ups, the National League champion Arizona Diamondbacks, they actually did throw the bag at somebody, and that was going to be Zach Greinke, who got a 6-year, $206 million contract back in the 2016 offseason. The first season for Greinke was definitely rough, one of the worst seasons of his career with a 4.37 ERA and 158 innings pitched, but the next 3 with Arizona, he calmed down, he cooled off, and he pitched really well to end up having a 3.4 ERA for his career with the Diamondbacks and 700 innings pitched, and a whip at 1.093. During his time with the Diamondbacks, he finished 4th in the Cy Young voting in 2017. He was a 3-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove Award winner. He was a really good player. So yeah, while he didn't finish his career with the Diamondbacks, he didn't get to see that contract through. They ended up trading him to the Astros, of course, for J.P. Bukowskis, Seth Beer, Corbin Martin, and Josh Rojas, which, they got a whole lot of nothing. I think this one was a fair contract. I don't think it's bad or good. It was just pretty much right on the money. Another re-sign here for the New York Yankees, the biggest contract they've ever given out to a free agent, of course, is going to be Aaron Judge, who just got paid 9 years, $360 million. And yeah, it's going to be worth it. Judge is a stud, coming off a historic season. He got paid, and he looked really good. While he did have some injury issues, only played in 106 games, he still hit 37 homers and had an OPS over 1,000. So yeah, Aaron Judge is disgusting. He's sick. He's one of the best players in the league, and this contract is going to be worth it. Of course, too early to tell, but I'd be shocked if he's not worth the money they pay him. He's just really good. Bit of a head scratcher for this next one here. The White Sox biggest contract ever goes to Andrew Benintendi, who signed a 5-year, $75 million contract this past offseason in 2023. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably not going to be worth it. It didn't make sense at the time. He played horrendously in 2023. I don't know how they're going to be able to spin this one into a good contract. 151 games, he hit 5 homers, 34 doubles, 45 RBIs, hitting 262 with a 326 on base, 356 slugging, and a 682 OPS. It was by and large the worst year of his career, and yeah, not looking great for the White Sox. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, Frederick Charles Freeman's going to be their highest paid free agent ever at 6 years, $162 million in the 2022 offseason. And yeah, Freddie Freeman has been worth it, without a doubt. He's been one of the best hitters still in Major League Baseball, showing no signs of slowing down, and he basically plays in every single game. With the Dodgers, in 2 seasons, 320 games, he's averaging 25 homers, over 50 doubles a year, and over 100 RBIs with a 328 average, 408 on base, 540 slugging, and a 948 OPS plus at 158. Simply playing better than he almost ever did with the Braves. Freddie Freeman's a stud, and yeah, this contract's going to be worth it. It's going to be an absolute steal. 2 of the 6 years already, he's been top 4 or 5 in MVP votes. Now, if only those Dodgers could win a real World Series. The biggest free agent contract in Tigers history goes to Prince Fielder's 9-year, $214 million contract that he signed in the 2012 offseason. This one's going to go down as a, I don't know, probably not worth it. Of course, there are some things that happened to Prince Fielder that just made it a little bit tough, and he did end up getting traded to the Texas Rangers in exchange for Ian Kinsler, so he didn't get to see the end of this contract come even close. In the 2 seasons he played with the Tigers, he was hitting around 30 homers, 100 RBIs a year with an OPS right around 850, so it was very good, but this is also one of the reasons why the Tigers are still kind of rebuilding a bit. Just handing out that money to a guy and then not really getting the success that they hoped for definitely didn't help them. This wasn't a complete failure, but it definitely wasn't a success, so I'll just say it was whatever. Weird one, because Alex Gordon's only ever played for the Royals, but he also is their biggest free agent contract ever, coming in at 4 years, $72 million. Shockingly low. And that came right after the World Series in 2016, which, to be fair, 2016 showed the power, but didn't really show much else, and honestly, his career went completely downhill from there. Of course, Alex Gordon, great with the glove always, won 4 Gold Gloves after he was given that contract, but the offensive numbers dropped off a cliff. He got old really quickly, and he was never the same. So 4 years, $72 million, yeah, probably not worth it for Alex Gordon. Probably should have let him walk, but also, who saw this fall off come this quickly? Not me. He became not very good anymore. Just more of a defensive outfielder at that point. For the Minnesota Twins, how could we not talk about their biggest free agent contract? The just absolute spectacle that was the last offseason, signing Carlos Correa to a 6-year, $200 million contract with some team options. We only have 1 year to judge Correa off of, and it was arguably the worst of his career. Played in 135 games, 18 homers, 29 doubles, 65 RBIs, a career low in batting average, on base, slugging, and OPS, 230, 312, 399, and 711, with an OPS plus at 94. Not a good year for Carlos Correa. There's no way around it. I'm not going to say it was a waste yet. I still am a Correa believer. He still hasn't even turned 30, so he's still theoretically in his prime. But he's going to have to turn around quickly if those dollars are going to match what he does on the field, because that's just not going to cut it. Woof. This one's turning out to be a horrendous contract. Colorado Rockies paying Chris Bryant 7 years, $182 million in the 2022 offseason. Looks about as bad as it could possibly get. Chris Bryant, so far in the 2 seasons in Colorado, has played in 122 games, 15 homers, 22 doubles, 45 RBIs. Yes, 45 RBIs in 122 games for a guy getting paid $182 million. I know RBIs, it's about like who's in front of you, who's on base, but wow, he's been terrible. A 259 average, 335 on base, 404 slugging, and 740 OPS for an OPS plus at 93. I don't believe he's a bad player. Chris Bryant is really talented, really good. I want to see him succeed in Colorado, but right now, this contract is looking horrendous. He's got to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing first and foremost, and then maybe the old Chris Bryant will turn up eventually. The biggest contract given out to a free agent in Cleveland Guardians history is going to go to Edwin Encarnacion, who signed a whopping 3-year, $60 million contract back in 2017. Gotta say, the 2 seasons he played with Cleveland, really good. He averaged 147 games a year with 35 homers, 107 RBIs, hitting 252 with a 358 on base, 490 slugging, and an 848 OPS for an OPS plus at 123. Yeah, that's a fantastic contract for the Guardians. That was awesome. Probably one of the better value contracts that we're going to see in today's video. No signs of really slowing down. Like, yeah, he wasn't at the Toronto MVP type level offense, but getting paid $20 million, putting up those numbers, pretty good. I think the Guardians would do that every single time. Next up, we've got the San Diego Padres, who initially gave Manny Machado a 10-year, $300 million contract as a free agent back in 2019. And I got to say, Manny Machado has been worth it. Finished 3rd in the MVP voting in 2020, 2nd in 2022, and you're looking at a guy who's averaging about 30 homers, 30 doubles a year with around 100 RBIs, Gold Glove defense at third base. While the average wasn't great this year, like he definitely didn't play well in 2023, I don't really care. He's still giving you around an 800 OPS at his worst with that Gold Glove defense and the power. $300 million is a lot. It's now been changed to 11 for 350, but regardless, Manny Machado, definitely worth it. And right now, I would say it has been a good contract, even though they haven't won. They did make that NLCS run last year. For the Milwaukee Brewers, the biggest contract they've ever handed out to a free agent goes to Lorenzo Cain, who got a 5-year, $80 million contract after the 2017 season with the Milwaukee Brewers. And for the first 2 years of this contract, Lorenzo Cain looked great. He finished 7th in the MVP voting in 2018, won a Gold Glove in 2019, and was playing pretty much every day, but then injuries caught up to him. The COVID season kind of slowed him down a bit, and he played a total of 126 games from 2020 to 2022, where he was not a good offensive player. So, I mean, $80 million is not a lot of money to give, and he was good for the first season and kind of fell off after that. Probably not worth it in retrospect, but I don't necessarily think it was a bad contract, if that makes sense. Just maybe you don't hand a 32-year-old center fielder who relies on his athleticism that much money, because you know he's only going to get worse. This is truly the most shocking one of the entire video. The Oakland A's biggest free agent contract they've ever given out was 3 years, $30 million to Billy Butler in the 2015 offseason. Billy Butler went on to play a total of 236 games for the Oakland A's, 19 homers, 44 doubles, 96 RBIs with a 719 OPS. This contract was not big enough to say if it's worth it or not, but honestly, he didn't really play that well. And 2016 was the last time he ever played. So he played like a year and a half for the A's, signed a 3-year contract worth $30 million, and was like, you know what? And his career was pretty much over after that. So yeah, technically it was a bad contract, but also it was so little that it doesn't matter. And this is more of a shot at the A's here. This can't be the biggest contract you've ever given out in free agent history. It can't be. 3 years, $30 million to Billy Butler? How? How? Doesn't make sense. Oakland A's just sell the team, man. The penultimate team in today's video, Washington Nationals. This one's a sad one. Steven Strasburg's contract after winning the World Series, hitting free agency, 7 years, $245 million, and we know how this one turned out. We know what happened. Since signing that contract, Steven Strasburg pitched a total of 31 innings, to which he had a 6.89 ERA. Injuries and just so many other things completely derailed Steven Strasburg's career. He was one of the most exciting pitching prospects we've ever seen. I remember the hype when he got drafted #1 overall from San Diego State. As a Mets fan, I feel really, really bad for this guy. He literally gave it his all. He risked his career to win that World Series. He got it for the Nationals. Nationals fans, I know, appreciate this guy more than you can even imagine. Feel super bad for him. This contract, though, in retrospect, obviously not worth it. Ended up being just bad, but for unfortunate reasons. And then last but certainly not least, we've got the Boston Red Sox, and their biggest contract they've ever given to a free agent went to David Price. You know it well, 7 years, $217 million in 2016. Now, of course, he did win a World Series with the Red Sox, so you can make the argument that maybe it was worth it. And you know what? He did throw a lot of innings in that first season with them, 230 innings to be exact, with an ERA under 4. His career for the Red Sox, a 3.84 ERA, a whip at 1.204, and 3.74 FIP, 588 innings in 4 seasons. It's kind of hard to judge whether or not it was worth it or not. Probably wasn't. They did get the World Series, which changes things, but he was not the same David Price that you saw in Tampa Bay or Detroit or even Toronto. He was not a Cy Young pitcher, never made an all-star team with the Red Sox, never even got Cy Young votes, and ended up being traded to the Dodgers with Mookie Betts in what was one of the worst trades we've ever seen. So yeah, this contract, not great. So there they are, the biggest contracts given out to free agents by every single team in Major League Baseball history. I'd love to know what you guys think is the best and worst contract down in the comments section below. I mean, that BJ Upton one is a head scratcher. Honestly, impressive that the Braves have been so good, considering that's the biggest free agent contract they've ever given. Remember to drop a like on the video if you guys do enjoy it, as well as subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the content coming at you. Follow me on all my social media at GiraffeNeckMarc. Links are in the description. And that's where I'm going to wrap it up, guys. You know the drill from here on out. YouTube recommends you watch this video. This is my most recent upload, so click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you all tomorrow for another video. Bye!